Week on Tuesday, you, as the Party of National Unity, essentially got a change of strategy from your partners in government, from ODM. Yes, consistently they've been saying we support a credible local process over and over again, but now they're emphasizing that a lot more than the opposition to the PNU campaign to have the case against the 63rd. Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think it's very clear. We have always said that, and I don't want to call it ODM, I want to call it the faction of ODM that has been really hell-bent to use the ICC process for political purposes. And I think what we've been doing is telling people out there that nobody condones impunity, that terrible things happen during post-election violence. But we have not reached that threshold of saying that we cannot have confidence in our institutions. Most important, we embarked on a campaign to tell the public that these guys are using this for 2012 purposes. Now, what is happening is that when these guys go to the country, they realize that now people are wiser. They realize that if we had violence in 2007, because ostensibly there was not a level playing field, the ICC process is creating another unlevel playing field. So this is thinking with the people.
Let me stop you there, because this is a recurring argument I hear from PNU.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Kioni yesterday or the day before was busy saying that we don't want to mortgage this country to the ICC. We
Yes.
want to mortgage our sons
Yes.
to the ICC. It's always been cast in a political limelight, but where's the evidence of that? Because ODM, as far as I know, did not conduct the investigations. They also do not have direct control over the ICC. They do not nominate those judges. So how is it political interference?
No, I mean, just look at the in one of the petitions on the before the judges, ICC judges. Ocampo himself said he had a list of 20 names. Now, whether the ODM have had in it, when did we drop from 20 names to 6 names?
But you have to follow the evidence.
I mean,
And that's something that's entirely in the hands.
let me just say the evidence that we have here. In July of 2008, Rama, there was a report by Kenya National Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
In August, there was another version. In October of the same year, there was version 3 of the same. Most of the people in the ODM were in the original version, and I've got all the 3 copies of that. They were, the report said clearly, prosecute Raila Odinga, prosecute Otieno Kajwang, prosecute Anyang' Nyong'o. They were all there in the original report of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. Now, come the final report, somehow, miraculously, the names are not there. Now, you turn around and say that the Kenya National Human Rights Commission is an independent institution, is a constitutional body, and. But some of these coincidences are not purely coincidental.
Yes, but surely, Moses, you can't take coincidences to court, can you?
No, you cannot take coincidences to court. But what we are saying here is that if we are to go even by Waki, why don't we go by the 20 names?
No,
in any case, why can't we compare
Waki?
Waki? No, why don't we table them? At least I know 6 of them.
Which ones?
The ones who are before the ICC. Yeah, so the issue is who are the other 14? Why can't we start there? Why can't we compare Waki? If that faction of ODM really has a point, why can't we say, look, for avoidance of doubt and for us to be seen to be, for the president to not only be fair, but be seen to be fair, please, Mr. Waki, give us these names. But let's show the world that these names are not there.
Here's my argument. The fact that Judge Waki had his list and he gave that to the ICC, and the ICC listened to Ocampo and he said, look, I have this information, I'd like to conduct my own investigations. And on that basis, he's made his case against 6 individual Kenyans.
Can I tell you, Rama?
Let me just finish. He's made his case based on his investigation plus data from someone else. Doesn't that, in and of itself, nullify your argument? No,
but listen here. Ocampo came here after he got the authority to investigate. I've been talking to most of the people, like in the IDP areas, for example. He never went to some of those areas. All he did was to depend on the report of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission and Mr. Waki. And with all the due respect to the judges, and I have a profound respect for them, they have got no idea about the socio-cultural political background within which Waki and KNHRC conducted the investigation. They are so much distant or removed from the actual situation in Kenya that it's very, if So the premise we are saying here is that KNHRC and WAKI are their basis of their Ocampo's investigation. Yeah, because if there's another one, I would want to say that Ocampo has talked to X number of people in Nakuru or Eldoret or in all the other places or in Kibera. Can you imagine now all the people in Kibera who lost their relatives? All the people in Kibera whose houses are still occupied till this day. Talk about forceful displacement of people. When are they ever going to get justice?
But here's the thing. PNU is casting this from two perspectives.
Yes.
It's a political problem.
Yes, it is.
That's your...
Yes, that is it. That's our primary... Yeah, that's our primary thing. No,
not yet.
By the way, the burden of providing evidence is not on us, it's on Ocampo.
You're making
No, it's on Ocampo. The burden is on him. And the burden on him to say that I have conducted credible investigation.
Surely
in my opinion...
Yes, but the judges were convinced, weren't they?
The judges are convinced because they are so much removed from the reality on the ground. They have got no idea how Kenya works. They can't believe it. Maybe they need even, to undergo some brain surgery to believe that somebody can go out there, use the whole ICC process as part of its 2012 strategy. For them, it's remote because for them, they have got systems at work out there. For them, they have got, cumulative experience of their judicial systems. When we try to build ours, they come in the way. But, I want to tell them that they have got no idea how some of these things happen in Africa.
Fine, let me twist this argument around. We have had, this is 2011, right? We've had a joint coalition government for the last 3 years, effectively, right? 3 years. And in those 3 years, we have bickered about reforming our judiciary and our criminal investigative services. Now, much as the PNU side of government says we want a year to set up a credible local mechanism that will match to international standards, you haven't done anything. That's
true. We've not done. And I'm happy we didn't do. Why? Because if we would have done, on what would it have stood on without a new constitutional order? Now we are saying we are doing judicial reforms because the new constitution.
2008.
Yeah, because the new constitution.
2008, Martha Karua was busy telling ODM, if you have a problem,
go to court. They said no, we don't. We want to reform the institutions. They said fine. All of us said we went to Parliament, passed legislation, got committee of experts, got the Parliamentary Select Committee, went to Naivasha, went all the way, went to the referendum, campaigned, got a new constitution, went for the promulgation. Yeah? So it is the Kenya is going to grow in an evolutionary, not revolutionary nature. Because the same guy said, why didn't you go to court? Because we don't have faith in the judiciary. So how do we reform the judiciary? They said, don't do cosmetics, don't do the ringera, slaying the dragon and that kind of thing. Let us anchor everything within the framework of the constitution. And we agreed to that. And that didn't take one day. We went through all the processes. Now we said, now we have the constitution, let's go through to the next logical step in the implementation. Then we are going to use that framework to reform the judiciary. It cannot be, haphazard, really. It cannot be, we wake up one day and reform the judiciary. If you do that, fine, it's going to work. Kiraitos tried it in 2003. It didn't go far. What we all agreed, both ODM and PNU, is that judicial reform should be anchored within a constitutional framework.
What about the criminal justice side?
With regards to
police investigations, better spending.
Have you read the police? Have you read the constitution on the police?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen how far-reaching, how radical the constitution? With the inspector general, with the 2 arms, with giving the civilian part of it all. Look, I totally believe. I totally believe what happened in 2008.
The average Kenyan out there still has to deal with a corrupt politician.
Yes.
Corrupt police.
True.
Who's making 10,000 bob a month.
No.
If I fork out 5 Gs in his face, he's going to take it.
True. That's fine because their days are numbered. When we have this new constitution, it's a death blow on the corruption in the police and all that kind of thing.
Let me make an
Do you believe that the problem we had in Kenya is personal failure or systemic failure? But largely, yes, it could be both. It could be both personal failure and systemic failure. But until you solve the systemic failure, you cannot solve the personal failure.
Why not?
No, because it's just like
it's
a window dressing.
Yeah, hang on, these systems were built.
It's a window dressing.
Individual values.
Do you think people do good things because they are good? No, because of fear of the law.
Yeah, it's not because of fear of the law. It's because of the benefits.
Yeah, but because if I choose to be a bad guy, say, look, I really depend on your good Christian feelings to be a good guy. Yeah, that's it. It could be, and I really encourage you to do that. But you should know that if you don't become a good guy, there are consequences within the law.
Let me make an accusation. Would for all these arguments that I hear from Kalonzo Musyoka, from Isaac Ruto, from Jeremiah Kiodi, that we want to give justice to the victims of the post-election violence.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, every single time any PNU person stands up and talks, it's all about this is a political process, we don't want this, we don't want that, but there's no detail. We're not delivering justice to these people.
The detail is very simple, that after all these reports which came up, all of them, including Waki, including Kenya Justice, said investigation of the following persons for possible blah, 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 blah. Investigation. You know, if we have mutually agreed, didn't we agree on how we are going to go through the constitution? We all agreed. Yeah? Didn't we agree on all those other things? So why can't we say we do agree these are the parameters for investigation, for an open straight, for a greenfield investigation? So that now, if after that investigation it says it's drama, we know, by the way, this came from a very, very, very credible process. But you can't start investigation when you start with suspects. So that's convoluted system of justice.
So in your view, Ocampo's investigation is essentially hogwash?
There's no investigation, so I will not even call it hogwash, because there was none. The guy just came. If you talk about secondary or what I call desktop investigation, fine. He conducted lots of desktop investigation where you take this report, you know, in front of the judges. And I think the dissenting justice call, you know, said this, that the guy is depending on this report in BBC, and this report in Washington Post, and this report in, I don't know, the Human Rights Monitor, or, you know, some other, I don't know what kind of publications. It is all secondary kind of investigation.
But
it's all desktop. Imagine if you go to court and say, look, I read.
Dissenting judge, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about the dissenting judge. Yes, Hans-Peter Cole.
Isn't that the same judge who wrote and said, and I quote, I am convinced that William Ruto did ABCD? He actually had a paragraph at the start of his ruling, his dissenting ruling on the case against.
But that's a fact. Yeah, he said so. He said so. He said so. Yes.
Yeah,
he said he said so.
His problem is that he's not convinced that they have jurisdiction.
But
so it's not that crimes aren't committed by the six.
But that's just, you're just proving what I'm saying. That these people, even from wherever they are, in terms of
it damns what your argument.
No, it's convinced. Is it a fact? Is it a fact that
wait? If he's convinced that crimes were committed by some of those six individuals, right? In this case, I'm referring to three people, right? If he's convinced that three of those individuals committed crimes, and he's basing that argument on the data Ocampo has provided, plus the reports from the Kenya National.
But the same guy.
Aren't you then just running around in
circles? No. But the same guy says that the bulk, 60% of the evidence was secondary evidence, was publications.
No, wait, he's convinced. That's the bottom line.
No, that doesn't make it right. That would you want to be convicted? Would you want to be convicted yourself out of 60% evidence from a copy from the Star newspaper and the Nation and Washington Post and all that? Yes, I can read and get convinced. You know, I read newspapers. I write in your newspaper, in the Star. I mean, I read and I believe. Sometimes I have no reason not to believe. Yes, I'm convinced because I'm read it. But when it comes to the issue of criminal justice, the threshold is much, much, much higher than reading secondary reports, than reading a report from, I don't know, Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International, and. And what you are saying is, if these cases come back to Kenya and we start greenfield investigations, when you are taken to court, not only is one judge going to be convinced, every Kenyan would be convinced that these guys, did commit these crimes. So what are you saying? You're saying bring them on.
Let me ask you.
Bring them on. Bring them on to our courts. Bring them on to judicial systems. Bring them on to our system of investigations. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: Are you familiar with the Nuremberg trials?
Yes, I am.
You're familiar with Hermann Göring's case?
Yes.
What is he convicted on?
On genocide.
Yeah. What was the evidence provided by the American prosecutor?
You see here, the victor.
No.
The justice of the victors.
Hang on.
You know, justice of the victors.
We're talking about evidence here.
Yeah.
Letters he had written, communications between him and the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, the German High Command. Letters between him and Hitler.
No, that's not secondary. Maybe you get me wrong, Rama. That's not what I mean by secondary. That is primary evidence. Secondary evidence is a report in the Star, a report in the Washington Post, a report in Human Rights Watch. That's separate from letters. Yeah.
Because here's my problem.
Yeah.
Your argument is essentially premising that I, as Ocampo, took 200 pages of a report and gave it to someone.
But that's what he did.
That's my evidence.
That's what he did.
But we also know, oh come on, these pictures were in the public domain. He got a ton of evidence, video recordings, interview transcripts with the victims, and he's also got his own people. how can you then say
But that,
that he was relying
no,
on
the same thing
terminated?
was, you know, I've been to, so all those years, Ocampo didn't talk to credible witnesses. Let me tell you something.
How do you know they're
Let me tell you
credible?
something. Let me tell you something. During the Waki report, during the Waki investigation, and this might be a shocker to you, ODM was sponsoring witnesses, preparing them to give evidence against PNU. PNU was also preparing witnesses against ODM. I know some of these even so-called witnesses, and I can't take their word with a pinch of, I take their word with a pinch of salt. It's not worth 5 cents. I know them. I was in PNU. I was involved in preparing them as witnesses. When I see some of them there as witnesses, I say, this is the guy I got from XYZ and give him 2,000 shillings. I did that.
So both sides.
It's a farce. It's a farce. And I'm an honest Kenyan, I'll tell you that. Okay. Some of these witnesses who Ocampo has, even out there, I was the first one to contact them. I know how cheap they are. So I'm not talking about something I don't know. Their first statement, even against some of those people in ODM, I got them from these witnesses, and I helped them in front of Waki. I do know that Waki is a farce, and we had no option as PNU, because we know what the other side were doing also, and they were doing exactly the same.
So wait a minute, let me get this straight. You're essentially saying because you know the other side was lying, instead of exposing their lies, you do the same
But
thing.
to expose to who? It was the justice of the victors. You know, they have come here, done mass action, and then cheated the world that they are angels. We didn't have a chance then. We didn't have a chance. You remember, like Waki, when he went to Eldoret, he just, you know, he was spent only like half an hour in the church, in the Kiambaa church. He spent all his time in Naivasha trying to get evidence by hook or crook. What options did we have?
All right. Moses Kuria.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We need to put you in crossfire.